Building an app, especially a great one, takes way more than just having an idea. It takes having a team, having the right process today. And today's guest knows exactly how to make it happen. So, uh, if you're joining and you are excited about technology and everything in and around that space, I think you're going to get a lot of value from today's episode. Welcome to the today's show, Victoria.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate you reaching out.
Absolutely. So let's dive into it straight away. Why did you decide to get into tech?
Yeah, so I decided to get into tech. Well, honestly, tech chose me. So initially wanted to be a FBI agent. Like, if you ever saw Criminal Minds, they had like behavioral analysis unit. That's what I wanted to do. But I started fixing phones in middle school, and then in high school, I was making money doing it. So I was like, I'll go to school for it. I learned engineering of the electronics, and so while I was learning that, doing robotics, I picked up a little bit of coding. And when I was done, I was like, I want to build a mobile app, and I'll just teach myself. And that was the rest of the road.
Exciting. So, for anyone kind of like looking to do it, can you break down your journey just a little bit to help them understand, what steps you took to kind of like get from having that idea to go this route and what how you eventually got there?
Sorry, can you repeat the question one more time? I was looking at the Instagram live doesn't look right. It's like not stacked.
Oh, I think you might have to change it.
Okay.
See see if you're able to do that. And in the meantime, if you guys are just joining, welcome to Working in Tech. This is the weekly live stream where we bring in a guest to talk about their journey in the tech industry with the goal to inspire you in your own tech career transition journey. So, again, if you're joining for the first time, welcome. And if this is your second, third, fourth, 10th time, good to see you again. And our guest today is Victoria. She's a software engineer. She's built her own company. She has a lot of experience, and I hope that she'll be able to share that, and you'll be able to benefit from all of the amazing experience that she has. So the question I was asking was, to go from idea to be able to make it happen. How were you able to do that?
How was I able to make like the actual okay, so I started teaching myself code for a while, and then I learned enough and I started going to like small owned businesses and seeing if they needed help with it. So they would pay me either like $10, $15 an hour, or they wouldn't pay me at all. And they would throw assignments at me, but on real life projects. So I guess they weren't really into teaching. They were just kind of like, here, I need this, figure it out. And I would try and do that. And then after that, I got myself into a coding boot camp. So this coding boot camp is called Reviture, and they actually pay you to learn how to code. And it was super intense, 10 weeks for me. Every week you're building like a full stack app, you're learning a new technology, you're taking a quiz, you're doing a one-on-one interview, but they sit you down with their partners. So they partner with like Fortune 500 companies, and they're like, hey, like we vouch for this person because we train them. So you interview with their clients, you get a client, and for a year or 2 years, you just work under a contract to that client from the boot camp, and that's how they get paid.
That is so cool. So was this program free or paid?
It was paid, so they paid me. So they paid me $8 an hour. But when I weighed out my options, I was like, I don't have $20,000 for a boot camp. And I kind of recommend everybody find a boot camp that pays them, because ultimately, if they're tied, if they're kind of like invested, then they really try really hard to get you a job. So during the pandemic, a lot of our clients were dropping out that had hired our cohorts to learn, and they really didn't want to let us go. Like they were like, we want to find you a job because we want our return on our investment.
Gotcha.
So they ended up laying me off for 1 week, but they did not want to let me go. And they laid me off, and then they were like, wait, we got something, but you have to train again. And I was like, whatever. Like, I'm trying to make this software engineering career happen without having to go back for a 4-year degree.
So before you actually got into this boot camp, what were you doing before that?
I was still in tech technically. I was in electronics engineering. So I was designing like I don't know, like audio equipment, I guess, and it was like super boring. So I quit and I went to this warehouse and did quality control while I taught myself how to code. So the quality control was completely unrelated to technology.
So what did you find? And I don't know why it feels like I'm hearing some audio feedback, but maybe is the Instagram live?
I actually cut it off.
Oh, okay. So for it sounded like you took a pay cut because I don't know if I heard it correctly. Was it $8 an hour or $80 an hour?
I was making $8 an hour at that boot camp, like eight whole dollars. And they moved me out. So I was living in Virginia at the time. And this is before remote work was like fully remote. And they wanted us to move to either DC or Tampa. Like they had all these offices across the states. And I moved out to DC to live with 5 roommates and make $8 an hour. And from that $8 an hour, I had to pay $400 rent. Like a lot of people complain about the boot camp, but for me, I kind of saw the opportunity to get my feet in the door, and it pivoted my career. So
Yeah, hearing the story definitely feels a little bit sus, but I like the positive attitude to it because ultimately I think a lot of people like the upside of technology, but
yeah,
they don't want to make the sacrifices needed to be able to succeed. And I think that's often the biggest challenge is that you don't get nothing for nothing. Like you have to put in something if you want to get something in return.
yeah.
So shout out to you for having that vision and for sticking through it. So
Thanks.
in your learning journey, right? Because already clearly you have an engineering mind, so it's probably easier for you. But in your learning journey, were there things that you found, that were challenging?
Yes. The first challenging thing is learning how to code. Like learning that on my own, as technical as I am, learning it on my own, you're trying to put so many puzzle pieces together. And sometimes you just need somebody to be like, no, this is not a big deal. You don't have to dive too deep into that. Like, this is high level what it means. Move on, and you'll figure out deeper what it means later. Like, so if I had that, I think that would have helped me a lot when I was learning on my own. But so there's that curve. Then there was the fact that like my first interview after the coding boot camp turned me down because I didn't have a 4-year degree. Like
Hmm.
it was just like I can do the work, but they don't care because I don't have a 4-year degree. So that's kind of like something that you have to navigate too. And then getting into the career, um, as a woman and a Black woman, there's just like you're working around a lot of people who don't really listen to people like me, but they're also not used to a woman being in that field. So they're unintentionally ignoring everything that I offer, and it gives you imposter syndrome. You feel like you don't belong there. You feel like you don't know enough. And so for a while, I struggled with feeling like I had to know every single aspect of the role in order to even apply for it. And so now, thankfully, I've kind of gotten rid of imposter syndrome, mostly because I know a little bit more, but also because I had some colleagues who just kind of reached out to me and they were like, we don't know what's going on, but you are on point with everything that you say. They're like, we're advocating for your promotion. We want you to become a senior engineer. Like, it was just like really, I don't know. It was just really reassuring. Like, dang, like, people who don't look like me, like they were white men, they are going out of their way to let me know that like I'm good at what I do. So I don't know. That was just a little bit reassuring. I don't know if that's like a good thing, but
Yeah, it is a good thing. And ultimately, I think the scariest and hardest part about tech in general is always that initial piece, right? That
yeah,
hurdle, that learning. Because trust me, like I've been in tech for way more than a decade, and I still don't know how to code. Just to put it out there,
that's
and
okay. That's good.
and I know how challenging it is. I've tried to learn HTML, CSS, even JavaScript a couple of times. Of course, I've never needed to learn it like needed, but it's not something where I could say like, I could if I wanted to. So
Yep.
so I do have a lot of appreciation for that. But it could be product, it could be data engineering, it could be a million and one things. I think it requires the same as anything else, right? If you want to be a basketball player, right, you're not gonna get everything. Your jump shot is not gonna upgrade from the start. Your 3 pointers. There's a reason why even professionals practice every single time. So I
Yeah.
think a lot of people need to have that perspective because just like you said, once you finally get in, there are always people who are looking to help you succeed, essentially.
Yeah.
So back to kind of like your story, you talked about all of these different little challenges that you had to deal with. I want to peek each one, but let's start from the interview, right? How did you feel like going to an interview, not passing it because you didn't have a 4-year degree? And how then did you bounce back from that?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think I really dwelled on it, to be honest. I think I come from a lot of obstacles. Like, I grew up having a lot of obstacles. So I just learned, like, when something bad happens, it's because there's something else greater for you. And I know that's so cliche, but it's so true. It just wasn't meant for me. So usually when things don't happen the way I want them to happen, I'm just like, okay, what's my next move? And so I was just like, give me my next interview, you know? It is what it is. They're missing out. And so that's just kind of how I face that.
That's definitely like a very valid way to look at it. I don't, but how do you maintain that perspective? Because it's easy to say like just chuck it up, move on. But I made a tweet that that really resonated with a lot of people, and I posted it again today. It's like um, getting rejected from a job or job hunting will teach you more about rejection than dating will ever will, right?
Yeah.
It's tough because a lot of times you can see the pay, you already have your vision set, but then they tell you no.
Yeah. For me, can you hear my background?
Yeah,
My dog is screaming. Um, if he doesn't stop, I'm gonna have to go like let
no
him
worries.
loose. But but sorry, I forget the question because he's distracting me.
Do you want to go? We could pause for like a quick.
Yeah, let me go let him loose.
Okay. So again, welcome to Working in Tech. Shout out to I don't know how twins, I think. It says no, it's good. Thanks for letting us know. I think that was about my question earlier regarding the audio. If you're just joining us, this is Working in Tech. We've been chatting with Victoria for the past probably say 10 minutes. Oh, she's back. Okay. And she's been answering the question around, how to deal with rejection in the job search process. I think I'll move to the next question, which was you had touched on getting that support, right? Dealing with that in the role. What did that feel like? And did it validate you, or did you feel like maybe you were being patronized a little? And how did you deal with that?
It felt more validating than anything. I needed
Mm,
that. Like, I still reach out to those team members to this day. Like, I ended up leaving the job, but I feel like would I have left the job if they would have came to me, if they didn't come to me and say you're not wrong? No, I probably would have stayed there and I would have tried really hard and I would have continued to try to please these people or perfect something in this role that was unachievable.
mm,
So it validated me for sure. Like, I don't really have a lot of negative thoughts. Like, for me, I don't know what it is. Like, I do have like if I have imposter syndrome, the next thought is how do I fix it? Like, how do I overcome this? Like, so it's like I don't dwell on the rejection. I don't dwell on the negativity. I don't dwell on what I didn't do. I'm like, okay, I didn't do it. How can I do it? So
mm.
that's kind of like I grew up in Jersey in foster care, and then I got adopted into a home that was like also toxic. And I think going to like having that home environment that's extremely toxic, and then going to school and like you're getting bullied because kids are kids. And then my foster mom passed away when I was 15. So now I'm like taking care of myself. So just I think taking care of myself from really early age and already having so much that I've had to grow through, I think I kind of just am like, it's never the end of the world when something bad happens. Like it's yeah, rejection happens, but it's not the like you don't have a choice but to get up and try again tomorrow, you know?
You have such a powerful perspective,
Yeah.
and power to you. Like you're a rock star, and I like hearing this perspective because I think a lot of times, you know, people oftentimes only see how hard it is, but a lot of people don't see how tough they are, or they don't really like reach in and dig deep and see like they're capable of doing way much more, right? Like if you think about it, almost everything in life is brutal. Like it's brutal if you can make your rent. It's brutal if you know you're short of money and you can't really afford the things that you want. It's
Hmm.
brutal if you're in a job search. Like it never really is easy in any of these spaces. But there's one tough that's easier, right? Like if you put yourself in a position where you can earn a lot of money and be able to have some financial cushion, at least you can deal with some of the other difficulties with a little bit more assurance, if you like.
Yeah, for sure.
So after that initial role, what was it like for you, navigating and maybe help me understand like, so how long did you have to kind of like work within the program setup before you kind of like had to go do it on your own?
Yeah, so it was 1 year. The first year, so technically it was 2 year contract. Once you finish your boot camp and you get a client, you have to work for the company for 2 years. The first year you make 45K. The second year you make 55K. The client can buy you out. So my client, I was like, I'm gonna work hard. My client's gonna buy me out after a year, and I'm gonna quit. And my client bought me out after a year. They gave me a raise to 70K.
Let's
And
go.
I was like, oh, this is such an easy job. I'm just gonna stay. Never mind leaving. And God came down real quick and said, no, stick to your plan, because they were like, come move to DC, because I was living in Atlanta. They were like, move to DC and get vaccinated, or we got to terminate you. And I was like,
What?
so I submitted a religious exemption so that I could get out of the getting vaccinated just for the heck of it. And then I went in my LinkedIn inbox and I responded to someone who said, hey, we're interested in your skills. Like, would you like to talk? Set up an interview with them. Did one interview. The day after I did the interview, they said, we want to hire you. And
Boom.
boom, base salary 90K, 10,000 stock options. And I went back to work and they were like, hey, I submitted my resignation letter. And they were like, you didn't give us time to improve your religious exemption. We were going to approve it. No, I'm good. You only got there at me one time. So it took what, a year and like a month?
I think that, and maybe, of course, this is a little off topic, and I don't even want to dive deep into it too much. But with the whole COVID situation, like, how did you feel? Because I think a lot of people kind of like felt hurt and betrayed by the companies that they were working for at the time, and how like draconian some of that felt. Was that how you felt at the time?
Um, yeah, I guess I didn't feel valued because it was like, dang, you just about to fire me because I don't want to get a vaccination that just came into existence 2 months ago. Like, come on now. Like, I want to have babies. I don't want to have no heart problems. Like, I'm a healthy human being. So give me a minute. Like, if the vaccination is for me, I'm gonna end up getting it. But they're trying to force it on me. It's giving agenda. So yeah, I definitely didn't feel valued.
I definitely feel you on that, and I think a lot of people struggle with that too, right? Because especially like at this time you were remote, right?
Yeah.
So like you could have just stayed where you were and not be no problem, but they said no, you gotta.
The work's been getting done so far. So where I work now, it's the same thing. It's like the work's being done remotely, but hey, come to the office 5 days a week.
That is so interesting. I'm so happy that it worked out for you. So what speaking of that space, right? Because you had a plan to get bought out, you did get bought out. Um Explain that, because the thing is a lot of people, they get sold on this fake vision, right? You're gonna take one certification, 6 weeks, six figures, boom,
Oh, makes me cringe.
right? So, and I think that sets the wrong expectation. Like you're just gonna kick your feet up and not have to do any work. What did it take for you to get bought out? Because ultimately, what that says, just for people who may not like fully latch onto it, is this company thinks she's doing such a great job. It's gonna be cheaper for us to hire her right now before she has the chance to even start listening to any other offers, right?
Yep.
How were you able to prove that?
Yeah. So honestly, I don't think it was hard, mostly because it was government work. Like, first, I want to point out that it was a long journey. Like, I started learning how to code and trying to become a software engineer, and like officially a software engineer in 2016, 2017. I had went to Fullstack University. That didn't work out. So I find this boot camp in 2020. Now 2021, 45K. So It's a really long time. Technically, it's taken me a long time, but it seems like it's taken only 5 years. And then another thing I'd say is as far as like how hard I worked, I really showed up. Like when you're a software engineer, you tend to be more of a loner, So like you eat lunches alone, you don't show up to different company events, or you don't really talk in meetings. You just wait for people to tell you what to do. You don't give them ideas. You just wait for them to tell you. And for me, I think naturally I'm like this, but I think it advances me. I show up in meetings. I show up at the virtual happy hours. Like I'm sending ideas. I'm challenging, right? I'm saying, wait a minute, like, yeah, the product team is telling me to implement this. But as the actual techie, I understand that this is actually not possible. So do I give them, hey, this is not possible? Or do I give them, hey, this isn't possible, but this is? And it still gets you the same business results, which is ultimately all everybody wants.
I think that's a part that thanks for bringing that up, because that wasn't even the full question, but I like exactly where you took it, because I think there's a lot of, I was actually going to make a video about it. There's a lot of, one, I think, work culture thing that comes from blue collar work is just like keep your head down, do your job, don't be in anybody's business. That is sound advice for those spaces, but doesn't do anything, in corporate. That's one. And then there's two, there's also like that natural, tendency for people who are engineers, right? They're
Yep.
not usually like the chatty types, and not usually like, they're outgoing. They want to solve problem, they want to do the job and not have to worry about it.
Yep.
So you pointing that out, I think, is actually really important, right? Because I think it kind of like gives people a glimpse. The work doesn't stop at just doing the work. It's not, I ship the code, I put it in Jira or wherever, right? And then it's done. Or put it on, close the ticket on Jira, shipped it on GitHub, or pulled it, or whatever the term is. It goes beyond that, right? You have to
Yeah.
build relationships. You have to be engaged, right? It's not just give me my task, let me go do it.
Yep.
Sometimes engage the team, provide a different perspective. I remember like 2 years ago in a different role, I was talking to like, a vendor team, and they said at their company, they no longer hire software engineers, they hire product engineers. It says because they don't really care about somebody who's just going to ship the code. They
Yep.
want somebody who's going to challenge them on the problem. Like they don't even want to worry about the technical implementation first. They want
Yeah.
to work on the soundness of the idea. And then because they realize that whenever they've built code that way, they've
Yeah.
built it more scalable, more clearer, because the person knows the problem they're really solving for. And I thought that that was really powerful.
Taking the time in the beginning to truly hash out what it is that you're doing is important. Like so many software engineers are like, I want to build this app, start coding. It's like even with coding, you still at least need to write down like some stuff, But even like I develop mobile apps, so I have a business. I don't know if you know that, but I have a business that develops mobile apps, and a lot of common experiences is that I've spent 2 years trying to get this MVP out. I've spent $50K, even though it's only $15 an hour. It seems cheap, but it's not cheap. And I'm like, did you do a product discovery? No. So you just asked someone to build something for you, but no one really had any idea what the vision was. So now you're developing something, they're delivering what you're asking for, but they don't understand the business. They don't understand the idea. So now they're building it. They're not challenging you on it. Like, oh, I understand the business. I know that this feature probably isn't going to be necessary. So it's something that I do in my business. I do a really deep product discovery before I develop anybody's apps, and I end up delivering apps in 6 months. Just turn them around. So that beginning piece is important.
I definitely want to get into that too, because I'm just really like fascinated about your breadth of experience and how you've been able to do so much in what seems like so little time. But before we even go there, right? Like, so you get this role. What does that journey look like, right? You get reached out to, which is great, by the way. Like, trust me, like that's the holy grail in tech, getting that DM and then doing one round of interview and then getting the job. Like, that's the dream.
In my corporate job, I did one interview.
That is dope.
Fortune 100. I met them at a networking event. They interviewed me. I feel like the interview was nothing. They were like, create an array, something simple. I was like, okay, like that's the whiteboarding. No crazy algorithm, no stupid fill up a car with Skittles question. So sometimes it is that easy. If you do the research properly on the job that you're applying for, it's that easy.
And something that you said that I want to kind of like piggyback off, or maybe want you to share more, is one of the things that I've been hammering about a lot is the benefit of networking, right? Because the biggest challenge that most people don't understand is the reason why this interview processes are so difficult is
Hmm.
because as these companies grow, they want to set a high bar for who they're bringing into the company. See, like if you knew like the CEO of a company and it knows that you're a good software engineer, you never have to go through those rounds to get hired. The
Yeah.
challenge is they can't really make that decision. So they make you jump all these hoops because many of those data structures and algorithm problems, you don't even have to do them if you're on the job.
Yeah.
That's not what you do on a day to day.
You never
So
do it.
so how important has that networking piece been for you in kind of like building out your career so far?
Yeah, no, that networking piece has been my career. Like, just being able to talk with people about what it is that I do. So it's like when you're becoming a software engineer and you have no experience, you're not building up a portfolio to say you have a portfolio. You're building up a portfolio so that when you get to these networking events and people are like, "Hey, what do you do?" And you're like, "Oh, like I'm a software engineer. I built this project and this is how I built it." They're like, "Oh, really? Like, tell me more about the back end." And as they're asking those questions, that's the interview. They're just digging into what your actual knowledge is of building applications and how you problem solve. Oh, like what are some problems you encountered? Or naturally, you just tell them, right? It was this really hard problem. It took me 8 hours, turned out to be this. And now everybody's laughing. But truthfully, they're like, dang, this person's a problem solver. Like, okay.
I like the fact that you called that out specifically because, as someone who's also been a hiring manager, right? The thing that you're looking for the most is not any specific skill. Again, it does help to have the skill to understand the technology, to understand the platform, the infrastructure, everything else.
Yeah.
But what you're doing in tech is going to always have to change. We're talking AI, we're talking all these different things. You never expect someone to come into a role and know everything that they're doing 100%.
You're right.
But what can help you the most is like you understand the mental model. Like, how does this person think? How do they problem solve? Because if you can do that, imagine what I'm thinking as a hiring manager when you say that. If this person can do that on their own with nobody pushing them, with no motivation, it's not like, you're gonna get fired if you don't do it. You do it on your own. That's exactly who I need. That's
Yep.
what the hiring manager is thinking. Because they
Yep.
also have a problem. They're looking for a resource, they're looking for a talent. And if you can show that you're that person, it makes it super easy.
It really does. And networking, especially tech events and stuff like that, you never know who you're talking to. You just never know. And so if you're just truly always talking about like what it is that you do, somebody's gonna be like, "Dang, I'm gonna hire them. Let me reach out to them again." And that's what happens for me a lot of times. People reach out from networking, or I'll reach out to them, and I'll connect on LinkedIn, and I'll say, "Hey, it was really nice meeting you. Would love to just like catch up a little bit more," and then I'll get on their calendar and do that one-on-one if it's a direct, like, we know we could benefit from each other, like, you need this, I need this, let's talk more.
Mm.
Sometimes it's just exploring. It's just like we hop on a one-on-one to explore each other a little bit more, and now we've basically like solidified our connection,
Uh-huh.
but we're still going separate ways because like, oh, okay, we saw what could be. We don't have any direct like reasons to really keep interacting with each other, but also they know who I am now. So a year down the line, I'll hear from this person. And I'm
Mm.
like, hey, remember that conversation we had at the Business Expo in 2021? I need an app. So it really pays off.
Yeah, that's dope. And before I do really want to dive into your business because I think that's fascinating. It's fascinating for me specifically because entrepreneurship is an idea that I think a lot of people flirt with, right? But they can't really take that leap because it's scary. So I do want to also go there.
Yeah.
But before we do, final question on just like your tech career. One of the things that you alluded to is the fact that it took some work, right? Like you had to do things and being able to speak to that work. For someone who's getting into tech in general, what were the things that you did, right? In terms of building projects, in terms of having a body of work that you could talk about to even make these conversations interesting, just to help people understand how to approach it. For example, if they don't have the benefit of going through like a boot camp like you did.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, it was about like, so if you're gonna do, say you're teaching yourself through a Udemy course, that hands-on aspect is kind of the best piece. So my first advice is watch crash courses. Like, if you know you want to be a software engineer, you know and you enjoy it, great. But if you're like, I'm just trying to pivot into tech because I want to make some more money, but also I'm just tired of what I'm doing, I say go watch crash courses on YouTube, crash course in Agile, crash course in project management, crash course in mobile app development. Watch it those first because they're short. And as people are sharing what those roles are, you'll be like, dang, I actually like to do that. Now you go a little bit deeper and you're like, okay, I'm learning the skills, right? And then on top of learning the skills, I would say don't overthink what you build for your portfolio. You don't have to build this full-fledged Facebook app. I would take a hacker rank and turn it into a full stack app just because. And that's how I solidified my experience, right? So like I think I have on my GitHub many full stacks. And they're literally just a project that I connected to a database, and then I created a service layer, I created an implementation layer, sent it over to the UI, implemented that one API, and then visualized that one API on the UI. It was a full stack application.
End to end, all done. Infrastructure, code, everything.
I have experience with every single aspect. And then that's another thing that I feel like is useful. Like when you're learning software engineering, some people tend to, oh, I like the front end, it's easier. And I will say, like, my one piece of advice is learn all of it, because knowing first of all, you're not a software engineer if you don't know all of it. That's number one. But knowing all of it puts you in a better position, because I don't think I've ever been hired for a job. Like, I got hired for a UI developer job. I'm full stack. Like, I do everything, because it doesn't make sense for someone to hire someone front end and they're like, oh, you need to wait 3 weeks for the back end to be done and then you can start the front end, versus, hey, you build the front and the back end in 2 weeks. Now you're saving time. So it's always very useful to understand the full architecture of app development and do it by just don't overload it with features. You don't need to do that. Just get the hands-on experience by turning one small API into a full stack application.
You know, the one thing that I want to say to that is almost, and I think there's a big benefit to that, right? Because there's nothing, you could watch all the videos, you could take all the tutorials, you could do all of that. Nothing will ever prepare you for the job than doing it. In fact, like the biggest inspirations will come when you really want to implement something and you are stuck, right?
Yeah.
Like you go down all the rabbit holes in the world just to be able to solve it. And the beautiful thing is we now have ChatGPT. Like you can ask for the breakdown step by step and it'll do it for you. So you could just take it and then go implement it. Guess what? Now you've solved it. And I think even learning from that, it trumps everything else, right? Because not only do you remember the knowledge, you also remember the frustration, right?
Yeah.
And that just etches it in. It becomes core memory. So
Yep.
to your business, I'm really, really excited for this, right? Because it takes a lot of heart, let's put it that way, right? To learn, first of all, learn the way you did, you literally went commando, like you learned the hardest way possible, right?
Yeah.
And then you went and took that job, you built yourself up. At what point did you say, you know what? None of this is easy mode, right? Let me do something more challenging and build a business.
So I only became a software engineer to start the business. So remember when I told you about that mobile app idea I had back in like 2015 or 16, and I started teaching myself how to code it? That's when I started learning about that knowledge gap. Like, founders that weren't technical were kind of getting bamboozled. Like, they were going to Fiverr and finding people in India to develop apps. It was taking 2 years, and it's just like they're wasting our money. And I just feel like if I wanted to pay someone to develop a mobile app for me, I wouldn't be able to, because it would be too expensive, or there wouldn't be flexible payment plans. I don't think I would have like a someone to advocate for the fact that there needs to be a product discovery at first. So I was like, I want to do this for people. I want to make mobile app development accessible for people like me. And so I already was interested in software engineering. So I was like, should I start the business and just be one of those people who starts a business but doesn't know exactly what to expect from the team? Or do I become a software engineer first and then start the business? So I became a software engineer first. I put my business idea on hold, became a software engineer. And about when I was at the boot camp and I had that contract, I
Mm.
couldn't do anything outside of that job. It was a breach of it was a breach of contract.
Mm.
So I waited. And then the minute I got out of that job, I called my aunt. I was like, I need to start this business. And I didn't know what I pivoted my business idea probably like 3 times, because I started with, I want to do mobile apps and here's how I want to do it. Then I was like, ooh, I know how to do web design. I can do project management. I can do DevOps. I can do cloud engineering. I can do all these services for people. So I put all those services on my website when I was creating my business, and very quickly said no. So my website is still outdated. It's getting upgraded, but I went back down to, after a little bit of trial and error, like it's been 3 years now. So I went back down to just focusing on mobile apps as like kind of like technical co-founder. So I do like product discovery, then I do development, and then I do marketing plus road mapping and adding in iterations to the app.
Mm. And it's funny because you mentioned this. So why did you? Okay, I'll probably give a bit of context to my journey and then maybe ask the question because I think it'll add more color to it. So we also were building an app. This was maybe 2021, and I wanted it to be the everything app, right? But you realize very quickly, for example, that even Facebook, the one of the biggest, if not the biggest, like social network, started off as just one thing, right? It was only serving one specific type of customer before it grew.
Yep.
One of the things I realized by just kind of like making that mental leap is you can definitely build something that's going to serve everyone, but you're not going to be able to serve them in a meaningful way if you start off trying to do that, right? You have to first start off close because you need to build that expertise. Like, and just like you said, an app needs so much that why are you taking that energy and putting it in multiple other places? But it doesn't seem obvious at first, right? Because we all want to be moguls, right?
Yeah.
So how did that realization come about for you?
I was just trying to take on a lot. I realized I don't even like doing web design. I like web apps. I don't like web design because of the clients. Like they don't know really much at all about technology. So they're like, hey, I have a business. Can you build my website? And then they want you to they want you to figure out all the details about their business. Like, I'm like, well, can you send me the about us snippet? I thought you do that. Why would I do that? And it's your business. I don't know. So I was like, I don't even like web design. And then I started realizing that if I didn't, like, I did a cohort, and I'm in Atlanta. I don't know where you're at, but I did a cohort at the Russell Innovation Center, and that cohort was really enlightening for me. And they were just like, what services does your business offer? And I wrote everything down, and they were like, how are you going to fit all this into a elevator pitch? Like, if somebody asked you truly like what you do, what would you say? And I was like, well, I build mobile apps and I do it affordably and I do it in a great time manner, and I offer flexible options. They were like, that's it, So I was like, okay, like I really do need to perfect. This is what I originally started it for. So it kind of brought me back a little bit.
So what app were you looking to build initially when you wanted to actually do this? That took you on this
I
crazy
know,
roller
right?
coaster journey.
So back in the day, when I grew up, like I just used to walk to the basketball court and play basketball. Like there was always people there. And then as I was getting older and I was like, okay, like, yeah, I work, but I still want to play basketball. No one's at the courts. Like it's just empty because everyone's inside now on their phones. So I was like, what if I build an app for basketball players, right? And I say, hey, let's play a pickup game. All the people who play basketball are on the app. So based on location, you can actually find people in your area that are interested. And I never built it. But guess what? I got a client who came to me and said, I've been building this app for 2 years, and it's not for basketball players, but it's for athletic players to find other people to play sports with locally. And I built that app for her on a discount, and I said, give me the rest in equity. Because I'm invested in the idea. Like it came back to me. I let the idea go for a bigger purpose.
To help other people do what you were not able to do.
Yes. So I was like, it started out as I want this basketball app for myself because I want to play basketball. And then I said, dang, well, let me put this aside and help other people, because I realized these other people can't get their apps built properly. And it came back to me.
Full circle.
Like, yeah. So I don't know. It's like a blessing.
That is so amazing. And you know what? Like, I think what's also interesting to me about just that story in general is like it's actually one of my next videos that I'm dropping. It's about purpose, right? Like that word used to trigger me even like earlier, like, oh, find your purpose, things like that. Like it felt so cliche. It just felt like something that people said just to say, right?
Yeah.
But it's crazy how far you would go when you have something driving you. I think there's so many things that kind of like guarantee success, right? Being able to hang in there even when it's tough. Why?
Mhm.
Because when it gets easier, for example, you're gonna be way farther ahead for than most people who gave up, right? Another one is the fact that you hang in long enough means that like you develop certain set of skills that nobody else has. There's just so much that goes with grit, determination, perseverance, persistence. It's hard to have all of that if you're just motivated by money. And it kind of like goes to what you were saying. Like everybody hated it because it was $8 an hour. You were living it up because to you, that probably played a big role in that, in the sense that you mean you're gonna pay me to do something that I would do for free?
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. Exactly. That people sometimes are not able to like really pay attention to the opportunities, They're like it's like and I don't even know how to explain it. It's like surface level, right? At
Hmm,
face, some people are not able to see past the face of it. They're like, they see the
hmm.
face, they're like, ew, $8 an hour, 5 roommates. I'm in a difference. No, I'm not doing that. For me, I'm seeing what's behind,
Like
and I'm
you mean I don't
like,
have to pay 20K and you're gonna actually pay me? Where do I
I don't
sign?
gotta go get a 4-year degree. Like, I don't gotta pay 20K. And then it was like I had to move out to DC. So I was
Mm,
isolated. So I had
mm,
time to just keep my head down and learn a new skill.
mm.
And that was like I had the support because to do that. But then my sister's like, oh, like come live with me. I'll watch your dog. And I was like, that's the most support I've ever had on any journey. I'll take it. And I took
Mm.
it.
And that's another piece, right? Because I think you've touched on it, but maybe touch on it a little bit more, right? Because having a support system is definitely very key, right? I am,
Yes.
these are things that I like. I like people putting in work. I like people doing all of the hard work because it's not easy. Anybody who's telling you it's easy is lying. But I also understand the place of support, right? Because it's not that easy just to gotta like do it on your own. We have lives outside of these things. We have dreams. We sometimes break down. We're sometimes lose inspiration. So how much, you talked about your sister, you talked about your coworkers giving you that, that encouragement. How has, having a support system helped shape, you to be where you are today?
Yeah. I think having the biggest way, well, first, like being able to just like leave all my responsibilities and go learn how to code. I missed my dog, but I was like, this is going further than this. So that was like amazing for me. I think that's a game changer, right? All I needed was for someone to watch my dog for 3 months, like to go to a coding boot camp. But then also the confidence that it gives you, the fact that people believe in you makes you just go off. You're just like, wow, that was so nice of them. I'm shocked. Like, I can't believe they think this about me. And then they kind of help you realize within yourself, because sometimes you don't realize within yourself, like what you're capable of or what you're even doing or how smart you are. You're always just criticizing yourself a lot. And then sometimes you just got to stop and smell the roses. But the more people you have around you saying, dang, like, you're doing really good or you're really strong or you've done a great job, like, just having that, I don't know. It does something. It makes you go harder. You're like, oh, like that's so enlightening, and then you just go harder. And people really let me know. People used to always tell me I was smart, and I never believed it. And then having a support system that's continuously like, no, see how smart you are, and then something happens, and they're like, see, you're smart, and I'm like, dang, like I guess I am. So you start to. It's almost like affirmations. Like you start to truly believe in yourself even more because other people believe in you, whether it means they're sacrificing their time to watch your dog because they believe in you, or they're driving you somewhere every single day because they believe in you. Like no matter what the support looks like, if they're talking to you on the phone every day because they believe
Mm,
in you. But
mm.
it definitely pushes you a lot further.
So I know that mentorship is something that's also important, right? Because there's people who've walked the journey before, right? Like, of course, everyone and anyone can try to brute force it, but everybody needs like a bit of help, right?
Yeah.
Have you had that, and how do you get that? Because I think, again, the people that I mostly speak to are people who are like, first generation techies, right? They've not been in this role before, so you can see how hard it is to be able to even find that support system. One,
Yeah.
did you have, and if you do, how were you able to find that?
Yeah. So I, my the mentorship system that I have right now is not for my career, is for my business. For my
Mm,
career, I sought the community through like meetups, and then I would go meet people there and just talk to them and then like take advice and kind of like apply it. But if I could, I guess, speak on like the mentorship that I have for my business, there are there are people who, again, genuinely invested in you, right? They're like, I just want to share this advice. Like, I just want somebody to take me serious. I just want to make a difference. So, in that aspect, it's made a huge difference. I've met people and just talked to them, and they're like, set up something with me so I can talk to you more about the da da da. And I'm shocked because my experience has not been like this. My experience has been, oh, I'm too good for you, or oh, you need to go through so and so to
mm,
talk to me, you know? And it's
mm,
like, dang, like you're not trying to help the younger generation. Like, what happens when you're out the door, you know? But there's people, you learn to pay attention to the people who are genuinely invested in you. And then you just have to come and show up. I mentor people now as well, and people do not show up. So I'm like, how can I not waste my time but still help?
mm,
You cannot waste people's time. If someone says they want to help you or they will offer you the advice, you set up that one-on-one, you pull up to the one-on-one with questions, you pull up to the one-on-one with goals, things that, and it doesn't have to be super deep, right? If they're your career mentor, you say, hey, this is where I'm at in my career right now. I know this is where my vision is, and obviously you're where I want to be. You know, what do you have as advice for me? And then you implement it. And then the next time you say, hey, I tried this, here's how my results went. And the second
mm,
thing is you outgrow your mentors. Your mentors have to change. When you
mm,
where you need to reach, it's okay. They're not feeling any type of way. My aunt helped me start my business. But now I think since then, I've had at least 4 mentors. Like I had someone
mm,
help me streamline my business processes. I had someone help me figure out my personal brand. I had someone help me figure out like my mobile app development. So I met him at a tech conference, and he's just an older
mm.
guy who does what I do, and he's like, I'm here to share the info. So there's people who are willing to share, but you have to understand, one, don't waste their time, come prepared, and two, you can outgrow them. You have to have different advice from different people, and they don't take it personally.
That I mean, you're an operator, so you saying all the right things, because it's all of this is so important, right? Like,
Yeah,
and as an entrepreneur, especially someone with an entrepreneurial mind, you know what you need per time, and
yeah,
being able to find a resource that can give that to you is so important. But I think you touched on something that I've in fact I struggle with, and this year I almost said, like, I'm gonna start charging for one-on-ones, because a lot of people be DMing saying, oh, can I get 15 minutes, can I get 10 minutes? It's not about, first of all, like, the time is so hard, but that's not the biggest problem. The biggest problem is some people just want to talk just to talk, right?
yeah,
And my time is way more valuable than that, right? So it's almost like the money, in fact, like, to put it out there, like, if I would ever, because one of my goals was I was never going to charge for anything that I do.
yeah,
Now if I change that, I'll probably charge like maybe $10 for 10 minutes, right? And
yeah.
then in increments like that. So we could have that quick conversation. And now the pressure's on you, right? Like, how
Because
do
you
you make
paying
the
for this
most
time.
of your money? Because it's not really about the money, but it's what it signifies, right? It's like you put value
Yeah,
behind it. Because a lot of people don't really value the time of people like it's money, they just want to have that conversation, and they don't do some steps. For example, the advice that you got there, what did you do with it? And once you got it and did it, did you come back to say it, right? Because if I advise 10 people and I never get feedback, I imagine like these people are just jumping on a call just to talk and waste their time and my time.
yeah,
And then the 11th person who comes through, now I don't want to have a conversation, because it's like, I have deadlines. I have a million things I could be doing.
yeah.
But instead I'm talking to you. Are you going to use it? right? Or are you going to waste the time? So I think that was really valid. What advice would you give, aside from maybe like reaching back out, what advice would you give, or in terms of what you've done to your mentor to kind of like validate that they're helping you out and showing that appreciation?
You said, what advice would I give to who?
To people who are also kind of like looking for mentors or who have mentors, to be able to kind of like validate that experience and say, you're doing it for me beyond just saying thank you right after.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my advice would be like, if you just show up and don't waste your time. Like, that's like my biggest piece of advice for people with mentors. If you're not going to take it serious, if you're not going to follow up, maybe even like sit down and before you even get the mentor, put 4 days out of the next year that you're going to be on their calendar. Just schedule
Mm,
it. So even in my
mm,
corporate calls, I mean, even in my corporate job, I have 4 meetings on the calendar already with my skip level.
mm,
I just know already. I'm like, look, I want to meet with you 4 times this year. So, every 3 months on a Thursday at 11 a.m., I just put it on their calendar. They're not going to
mm,
decline it. And guess
mm,
what? They show up.
mm,
If people like the people are there, you just have to like do an initiative. So yeah, if you can just pick 4 days that you're going to talk to them, or maybe 2 in the next 6 months. Put it on the
mm,
calendar, get the advice, implement the advice. It doesn't need to be this weekly session. First of all, that's
mm,
not even realistic. But
mm,
even for you, you just doing these podcasts and the content that you share might be how you mentor people, because you're delivering great content. And like for me, I had to restructure too. I'm charging $100 an hour. I don't care. But then I was like, even then, I don't like when people are randomly booking my account. I don't know. Something about it was just not working for me. So I was like, I'm just going to go live every Friday. And if you have something you want to ask me, go ahead and ask me. Every
mm,
Friday you have me. So what are you about to do with this time? And there's
mm,
people who show up. And then I tell people, I was like teaching people how to code or get into software engineering careers. They want me to tell them every single step. I'm like, I can't, I have other things going on. So now I have my own little coding boot camp, right? I didn't create all the content. There are links to certain pieces that you need to learn. And then if you finish that, you can intern in the business, get the hands-on experience, and then get a recommendation. You show up for yourself the whole time. I just tell you
mm,
what's there. I still get
mm,
help in the long run, right? Because I get interns on the business, like helping me build products, and they mess
mm.
up sometimes. So I had a client database get completely deleted by an intern, but it's something that comes with the territory.
Yeah.
And my client was not pissed about it. She took it as an opportunity to relaunch with a new design. So that was cool. But yeah, just sometimes you have to help people, but also help yourself, which is something I have never done until this year. But
Mm,
it seems to be working. I share the content from the lives on Threads, and it's like if these people are asking me, "Oh, what do I do with my resume?" and I'm giving that resume advice on the live, other people must want to know that. I
mm,
just post it on Threads, and I post it as a post, and now it's content. And
mm.
sometimes that's the way you have to give back until you have more capacity to do the one-on-ones.
And that's a really valid one, because ultimately I think people don't even see it that way, right? Like we get influenced and inspired by many things. Like it's so interesting that like we all follow, and depending on whichever side you're on, I have a horse in the race, but I'm not gonna say which is it, whether it's Kendrick or Drake
I
or
knew you were
whoever
gonna
else,
say that.
right? The point is, where these are people we don't know on a daily basis, but we're still influenced by it. Like we're influenced by the culture. You don't need to talk to someone for them to be your mentor. You can have
Exactly.
silent mentors, right? Where you're following their advice, you know exactly what they're about, and then you can build around that. And I think that's even one more way, because people forget that like you can build. Let me ask you a question. Imagine if somebody showed up to your Friday live 5 days, 5 sessions in a row. Are you
Mhm.
more likely to take them more seriously or not?
Yes, I remember their names. There are
Exactly.
people who show up to my stuff religiously right now, and I hired one as a cloud engineer intern literally like 2 days ago. And then someone else, we did a one-on-one, and I was like, you're persistent. And I love that because, not intentionally, I don't think I'm better than anyone. Sometimes you're so busy, you overlook things.
But it
And
just keeps popping up. It's like, okay, you got me.
you got me. And they are not wasting my time. Like, and you get the internship and you either do or you don't. Like, you do well or you don't do well, but you ultimately, if you take your career seriously, you want to do well. Like, that's the bottom line. And then someone else reached out. She's like, I want you to speak. Like, at she's like, I want you to host some events with me. She does Tribaja for like Diversitech.
Oh, I know her.
Yeah. And she was like, I want at least 4 events with you this year. And I was
That's
like,
amazing.
done. Our missions align. We both want to help people. I'm already speaking at Diversitech in Philly
Nice.
in March. So missions align. And she did her research. I mean, she came to me and she was like, I saw you did this. And I was like, how do you know about that? Because that's internal to my job. She was like, oh, I saw it on your LinkedIn just casually. I'm like, mm-hmm. She did her research and she didn't waste my time. And I loved her for that because I'm like, these are good connections.
That is so amazing. Someone is shouting you out in the comments. Yes, my girl does it all.
Yeah, we do.
Absolutely. So, speaking of kind of like just roles in general, right? Like if you were going to advise people just based on like the state of the industry right now, what are some of the best roles that people should be targeting in tech right now?
Yeah. So I think that learning Python and targeting just AI models, agentic approaches, like that is like the next big thing. Now that the large language models are out there are going to be people trying to take advantage of them. Like notebook LMs are very popular now. So just understanding AI and agentic approaches, and AWS has like a short course on it, so you can understand AI pretty easily. And then also cybersecurity is just something that's never going to go away. And if you're not a coder, cybersecurity, compliance wise, there are like cybersecurity like engineers who do a little bit more work, but well, not more work, right? Because everyone does a lot of work, but something that's
More technical stuff. I get what you mean.
yeah, a little bit more technical. But compliance is going to be big, especially with all this data that's going to be piled into these notebook LMs and these. I mean, data is going to be a big problem. The databases that these AIs are built on are going to need to be protected. So I would say like AI number one if you're very technical, and then I would say cybersecurity next. And then after that, I mean, I know AI kind of goes hand in hand with data, right? Because you're going to be manipulating a lot of data, but I've never really analyzed the data. Like I just extract data and then build an AI model around it. So I don't know about data analysts. I can't speak too much on that, but AI and AI engineer for
I,
sure.
I think data engineers are gonna be more the standard now because I think especially like the more like this, you know, generative AI models and even like agentic AIs get better, a lot of like that analytics experience, even though like I know like a lot of data analysts will eat me up, may get abstracted away. Though I always feel like ultimately in many of these roles, your passion and willingness to succeed plays a role. But if we're speaking more broadly, right, you definitely want to go where the opportunity is more. Like they always say, you don't want to go where the ball is, you want to go where the ball is going to be. I
Yeah,
definitely think that the ball is going to be closer to like, you know, those things that you describe, and that's completely spot on.
yeah.
What's your outlook for like software engineers?
Um, AI is not gonna take your job. Like, that's definitely that. And I say, like, if you're a full stack engineer, learn how to pivot. You gotta accept change. Like, one thing about me is throughout my entire learning process, I learned a little bit of Python in 2015, 2013. I learned Python because that's when I was going to school. But I literally did not like it. And I was like, I'm good off this. And guess what I'm doing now? Python, even though I'm a full stack engineer. Like I have Java, I have JavaScript, HTML, all of the above. But my company, they are going to hop on the bandwagon for AI. You know what that means? I got to hop on the bandwagon for AI if I want to keep my job. So I've just kind of been like with my company, like, hey, like, what if we build this AI component to our application, and we do this and we do this, and they sent me to India. I go to India March 7th to build a POC and like do like a expo and like a office bite, at a conference that we have over there. So it's like
That is so cool.
you absolutely have to adapt. Like software engineers are stubborn. I like Golang. It's just da da da, and it's like just adapt. And they want us to use AI in our roles now. They don't want to replace us. They just want to see if it helps us work a little bit faster. At least that's my outlook on it. So I would say I wouldn't rely too heavily on AI in a software engineering role because you want to remain like know what you're doing. I go through code reviews all the time and I'm like, why did you do this? Why is this here? And it's like AI told me to do it, and I'm like, see, this is remove it, just get rid
Check
of
it
it.
out.
Yeah, so AI is not always right, it's not always accurate, but if you still it's not to replace software engineering. You still have to have the full concept of software engineering in order to build a successful application. And AI is not doing it as of yet, so we're okay. Just adapt for sure.
I know, like we're at time. I don't know if we have any questions. Please feel free to leave the questions in the chat. I'm sorry. I was supposed to say that like 20 minutes ago, but it was such an engaging conversation that I forgot to say it. I'm gonna ask one last question, and then if we don't get any question, we can close it out.
Okay.
So what's the biggest challenge that you've faced in your career so far, and how did you overcome it? I know it's a bit of a catch-22.
Yeah, no, I actually was just facing it. That's the thing. So I've never had a corporate job before. Like startup culture, I was fine. Like it was a lot, but it was like I'm doing it, I'm doing it. And corporate, one, they pay you way more, so they also expect way more. So I was just having a hard time balancing all the corporate shenanigans, like balancing my software engineering role with the corporate volunteering stuff, with the corporate BRG event stuff, with my business stuff. I mean, every time I thought I got myself above water, I was back underwater. So I really just had to get back disciplined. Like I had to really prioritize. I can't say yes to everything. I had to really sit down and plan like, okay, if corporate is all of these things that I never knew it was, which is BRGs and like cultural celebrations and work trips and all this stuff, how do I balance it to make sure that I'm delivering in my role, but then also I still volunteer, but it just doesn't, I'm not underwater on each one. So so planning strategically for like how you're going to show up in your role is a big deal. I know some people don't do performance reviews, but I think most jobs have expectations from you. So understand the expectations from your role and do just that, and don't add anything else until you can do that, and then start adding other things in. So I'm like 10% of my time I'll volunteer. That's all I do now. And now I'm like not really underwater. So yeah, getting underwater and just accepting on too much, it's hard.
Yeah, that's definitely very valid. Yeah, corporate can tear you in 100 different places if you're not careful.
Because you got to show up, you got to network, you got to do your job, you got to there's so much.
And manage stakeholders.
Yeah, and then manage stakeholders. I'm like, oh my God, there's a lot. They're tracking too. So like KPIs is something new for me. Like I always hear them get thrown around, but create personal KPIs. Don't just let somebody throw KPIs at you, create KPIs for yourself as well. So that way you feel like you're achieving something. Because even though I felt like I was doing so much, when I really sat down, I was like, I guess I didn't really do anything, So
and that's a good point. So one of the things I'll say to that is a lot of people usually wait till year end or whenever there's review to note it down. Have a place where you're always writing every time you have a big achievement. Because you think you're going to remember. No, you're going to forget. And always contextualizing is also important. It doesn't have to be like a long 3-month effort for you to really capture what you did. But if it made a big difference, it could be. And one of the things I realized, just like you said, all of the corporate stuff is important. So if you're delivering mentorship through like a corporate BRG or like you're going to show up, you should note it down. Like, for example, even this demo and POC you're going to do overseas, that's a huge deal, right?
Yeah.
But something that if you're not really contextualizing, you may completely forget. It might just seem like something you did.
Yeah. There's some stuff I literally forgot to put in my performance review, even though I wrote it down. So I was like, dang it. But the one thing I will say about that and I know you got to close out, but if you don't remember what you did, trust your manager don't remember what you did. So you cannot expect your manager to just recognize your work and, oh yeah, let me give this person a promotion. They're managing more people. You're managing yourself and you can't remember. So, writing down every single thing you do, and then at the end of the year, kind of like, okay, this is my summary, is probably the best thing you can do for your career. And it also helps you set goals for the next year so that you can continue to grow and not stay stagnant.
No, that last piece that you said is so important because I don't think a lot of people think, again, which is what I talk about, like what you hear in the streets and like blue collar culture is not corporate. Like you have to literally flip it around. And this is another way because you're responsible for your career.
Yep.
End of story. Many people forget that, right? But think about it. You got yourself there. Like you went to that networking event, you applied to the role, you interviewed. Why do
Yep.
you think that the moment you walked through the door, it stopped? It didn't. It's not going to stop. So you have to keep building towards that next step. You have to keep building towards that next thing. And you have to highlight, again, the same way you're owning like how you're showing up, you have to own how you're recognized. Because
Yep.
ultimately, like, and this is one thing most people forget, the only reason why companies will give you raises, bonus, and things like that is because they want to keep you happy so you don't leave.
Yep.
If there's a cheaper, easier way for them to do it, that's exactly what they'll do. So, how much you want it oftentimes is what determines how much you get it, right?
Yep.
Again, it's not to be the person who's constantly like complaining and whatnot, but you need to complain a little bit.
Yeah.
You need to constantly evaluate, remind yourself the value you're bringing, check yourself when you're not doing enough, but keep that balanced view overall so that you can advocate for what is really due you. Because if you don't, unfortunately, nobody's going to do it for you.
Yep. And I don't know if anyone does this, but like I have a one-on-one with my manager every week. There's no ifs, ands, or buts for me. Like we got to talk. I don't want to be in a position where they don't know me enough to be like, yeah, we gotta let somebody go, let her go. Or like, if I am struggling, I'm struggling in silence. Like, no, they need to be aware so that they can, if anything, be a little bit more empathetic when they are evaluating, or give you a chance to show up for yourself. Like, hey, you're falling behind. I know you said this in the one-on-one. So what can we do? What are you doing to fix it? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, the realest thing you said was you own your own career.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what you called out is also so important because, again, because I'm speaking to a lot of people who are coming from outside of tech into tech, if you've had a job anywhere else, it's not intuitive. Like if I have a blue collar job, like, and I'm messing up or doing something, I don't want my manager to know, right? Because they're gonna fire me. But it's literally the opposite in tech, right? Because if you think about it, or even in corporate jobs, right? If you think about it, your manager doesn't want to look bad if you keep messing up, especially if you're, it's a different thing if you're just somebody who's not responsible and not showing up for your work, then that case you're gone. But if there are the issues, you want to be open and transparent about them and say, hey, you know what? I don't know how to solve this problem, or I've run up against this block. Can you help me out? Because that way, guess what? Now it's not just your problem, it's both of y'all's problem now. And you got
Yep.
to come up with a solution. So
Yep.
that's kind of like the
Exactly.
thing that you have to figure out, right? Because there's so much to navigate. And if you navigate it the wrong way, you're going to be out of a job quicker than you realize.
Yeah. I've been fired from a lot of jobs when I was younger. They weren't like corporate jobs or anything, but it was just like a learning lesson, And some people don't work a lot when they're younger, so they get into corporate and they kind of fumble because they've never worked before. They don't understand like professionalism and like what to say, what not to say. So I learned my lesson the hard way a long time ago, but I'm still learning.
Yeah.
Every other month I figure out a new book to read to help me in my career. Like it is what it is. You have to continuously learn.
Books are definitely like a big hack. Usually, before we wrap this up, we always give you a chance to do a shout out, promote something, give a last piece of advice, or all combination of all three. Feel free to pick any or all of them.
Yeah. So I'll do I'm Six Figure Techie on Instagram, Threads, TikTok, you name it. Posting content about how to get into tech, what to do in tech, like things to learn, and then also just offering the help and offering the internships and the boot camp. What was that? That was a shout out for myself. I think that's pretty much it. That's all I got. Like that's what I got going on. That's like the theme of my life right now is just showing up and helping people get into tech, learn the skills. Questions, you have questions every Friday. I'm live on my Instagram. So pull up, ask your questions, be persistent.
Hey man, get a job out of it.
Yeah, get a job out of it. If you need experience, like I develop mobile apps mainly in my company right now. And it's pretty similar. The back ends are still REST APIs. The front ends are React Native. So if you know React, you most likely know React Native. So pull up on us. There's a lot of us. There's a community here.
Yeah, absolutely. And shout out to Twins and Tay and Diane all for joining. This has been a really exciting episode. I really want to thank you, Six Figure Techie, for joining today. Your experience is absolutely phenomenal. It's amazing all of the things that you've had to go through just to get here, and you deserve every bit of success that you've had. And I wish you even way more, as you go into the future.
I appreciate that. I appreciate you putting on the podcast, having me on the podcast. Maybe we'll have another topic. We can go at it again. And then maybe if you want to go live together on Fridays, like we can collaborate more for sure. Cause I think we have the same mission, which is nice. It's
Oh
great.
yeah, I definitely love to do that for sure.
Okay, cool.
That-
Yeah. Thanks for this.
Absolutely. That's been the show for tonight. We'll see you again next Thursday for another Working in Tech episode. Oh yeah, we had a last comment. New to the industry, good info. Yeah, absolutely. I told y'all, it was gonna be good. But yeah, that's the show for tonight. I'll see you again next Thursday.